Ryan here from RIP TV with John from Santa Cruz. He's going to go through some of the new stylings and some of the new stuff coming out from Santa Cruz this year. He's going to shed some light on some of this beauty product.
The Nomad, which I have here, is probably our most anticipated new model for '06. It's a bike that has 6.5 inches of rear wheel travel and is still fairly light. Frame weight's very dependent upon rear shock, but right in the neighborhood of about 7.25 pounds. So it's a bike that's got plenty of rear travel, which is fun for descending on, but is still light enough to get you up the hill without paying too much of a weight penalty on the overall bike.
So it uses a lot of its travel even when it climbs, but it still gets really efficient pedaling and a lot of traction, I would guess.
Absolutely, and with the some of the tuning characteristics of the rear shocks that we have, you know, the thing is really supple in the early part of its travel. It uses a fair bit of the travel when you're climbing, but then it's also designed so it tends to ramp up a little bit more towards the end, so you're not bottoming out on bigger hits. Some of the construction techniques that we decided to use on the bike, we've got some kind of a top tube design that we've been following through with some of our other models, the V10 and the Jackal, and we took some of those styling cues and incorporated them into the Nomad, but chose to do a monocoque front end instead of a hydroform tube like on some of the other bikes. So the top tube right here is a monocoque. You can tell by the big long weld that goes down the center of it, where you have two formed half kind of clamshell sections that are joined together. Some of the uprights here, a lot of design work went into these, kind of joining the chainstay yoke up to the seat stays there. That makes the bike really stiff laterally. So we have two pairs of links. This is the upper link right here. This is the lower link right here. Each one of these links is basically connecting two pairs of pivots. So you got a pivot right here and a pivot right here. And I was mentioning the counter rotation. When the bike goes through its travel, if you push on it, you notice this link right here rotates clockwise. The link down by the bottom bracket here is rotating counterclockwise.
So that kind of explains VPP in all its forms then?
Yeah, in kind of a general way, yeah, that's what the VPP design has working for it that makes them climb so well, is the chain tension helps neutralize the frame between rider and ground, so it's not moving a whole lot while you're pedaling. One of the characteristics of the bikes that seem to be most known for out in the marketplace is just pedaling efficiency. So, even when you hop on our VP Free, which has 8.5 inches of travel, or our V10, which is a 10-inch travel bike, those bikes still pedal really well.
So we're with John again at Santa Cruz, and he's going to go through some of the characteristics on the Blur XC.
About 3 years ago, we came out with the Blur, and at the time, as it was hitting the market, sort of before we went into the whole concept phase of it, I think we missed the market to a certain extent in that the Blur wasn't a full-on XC race bike, but it also wasn't kind of a mid-travel trail bike. And after it being out and us kind of identifying that, we ended up splitting it into two models, the XC and the LT. So the XC is more of a cross-country specific bike, and the LT is the long travel version of it. This being the XC right here, we've basically taken the Blur platform and tried to shave some weight out of it. So whereas our old Blur frame was about 5.6, 5.7 pounds, the XCs are right at 5 pounds. And we achieve the lighter weight by going with smaller diameter tubes and thinner tubes, in addition to saving some weight on the link, where we've gone from a kind of a chunkier aluminum link to a plated titanium link with some aluminum inserts. This also uses the VPP pivot design, so you have an upper link right here and a lower link down here, both of which rotate in opposite directions, which give the bike its pedaling efficiency. The chain tension tends to neutralize the bike between rider and ground, so you don't get much movement from your weight moving up and down and the bike bobbing due to pedaling influences. It pedals really well. It has 115 millimeters of rear wheel travel, so it still gets a fair bit of travel for a cross-country bike. And then, one of the other things I neglected to mention earlier was when we updated the Blur to the Blur XC, to give it a little bit more of aggressive position, we lengthened the top tubes and dropped the front end down a little bit.
So that would give it a lot more stability at that top speed then, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, in addition to kind of a more stretched out riding position, which cross-country racers seem to favor. We also shortened up our swing arm a little bit, so the chainstay length got a little bit shorter from what it was before. It's 16.7 inches now, to keep the rear wheel kind of tucked under the rider for a little bit better climbing ability and traction. Another thing on the Blur XC that's kind of new for this bike compared to the Blur that people are familiar with is the sizing. In the past, we had a Juliana line of bikes that were our single pivot bikes, where we got pretty short in top tube lengths, down to like 20.5-inch top tubes. And when we relaunched this bike, we went ahead and incorporated some of those sizing cues. So we have a bike. This is a small version that's in the stand right here, but we've got a size smaller than this that's got a 20.5-inch top tube and just under a 27-inch standover height. The way it dips down allows a rider with much shorter legs to stand over the bike and feel comfortable. We also ended up saving some of the weight on the frame at the upper link right here. We used to use an extruded aluminum link that was a little bit chunkier. There was more material up there, and we've since switched to these parts right here that I'm pointing out are titanium, and then they're held together, spaced between the shock with aluminum bushings. And all in all, we are getting complete bikes. That obviously depends on how you build them up, but 23 pounds is totally achievable for one of these things with with a nice light parts kit and wheel set.
So here we are in the Santa Cruz booth with one of the most badass bikes I've ever seen, the Jackal. It's bad, it's black, it looks like something Darth Vader would ride if he was into dirt jumping. Let's see if John can tell us about this bike.
Some of the design goals with the Jackal was to incorporate kind of a pretty cool look. So we're using a hydroformed top tube that's got kind of multi-faceted sides. There's a lot of hard edges on the top tube, and it's got kind of a horn upper section up here. And that's mainly for aesthetics. We also tried to incorporate a ton of just standover clearance for doing tricks. So the seat tube from center of BB to where the top tube cuts through it is as small as like 11 inches. So Kurt Voorhees helped us quite a bit with this bike as far as the design elements, and did a lot of testing on some of the early prototypes. And we were just looking for a bike that was really maneuverable and easy to flick around in the air.
Can you just touch on the dropouts a bit? The rear dropouts look pretty unique. They look like they bolt on or something.
The rear dropouts on this bike do bolt on. They've used some pretty large 8mm bolts. The dropouts on this bike are vertical. We also offer it with a horizontal dropout package as well. There's some big beefy stainless horizontal drops, and have a neat little bottle opener here on the back for extracurricular activities. And the thing's pretty much bomb-proof too. It's a little on the chunky side. It's tipping the scales around 6.5 pounds, but it's pretty much, you could do anything to it and it's not going to break, within reason, of course. But
so don't back over it with your truck. Well, I just want to wrap this up, and thanks, John, for telling us more about all the new Santa Cruz bike designs. They're looking really cool. Thanks a lot, man.
No worries, man. Thank you, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to spread the gospel on some killer bikes.
Perfect. We'll see you guys later from RIP TV. I'm out.